to everyone right now. By now, you were already briefed that I did a mistake last Friday evening. I did a 100-pound deadlift and something snapped at my lower back. And therefore, I'm experiencing lumbosacral pain. It's addressed by acupuncture and needling. Pain is very minimal, but I still know I'm injured. So I'm not, that's why we've decided not to travel to Lipa because of the injury. No, we're still not sure if it's a musculoskeletal strain or a herniated disc that caused the deadlift because I did the deadlift without a belt. So umasa ako na kaya nung katawan ko yung 100 pounds. Hindi pala. I forget also that I grow old. So that being the case, I'm on very minimal movement with a warm compress on my back and on a very stable chair so that and I'm moving, I can move from left to right because the chair has a swivel, but personally, I cannot move that much, or I don't dare move that much because once in a while there's just shooting pain. So once in a while you recognize that I pause because the shooting pain is just stronger than my reason. So, but nevertheless, there's nothing to worry. As I said, no, pain is very minimal. Last Friday it was 9/10. Now it's only 2/10. No, because I also needle myself. So, but it comes every so often. So I hope you understand. So again, apologies for not being able to go there when in fact I promised that I should be there in these days. That being said, we'll move already to a few reminders. A few reminders. Just a minute. I have to sign in now. Well, never mind signing in. Let me use my whiteboard again. Gusto niya mag-sign in talaga ako. Just a minute. Okay. So let's go to, so welcome to, you are now back to your thesis writing. And that being said, there are a few things that we need to be reminded of. Wala magko-comment ha. Sandali. All eyes on. Yes. So last time we were looking at the statement of the problem and did say that the statement of the problem is the defining point for your entire paper. In fact, the statement of the problem is what you are answering in your RRL, such that your RRL makes sense. And your statement of the problem makes sense only in as much as your RRL represents perfectly the statement of the problem, which means therefore that just as there are three statements of the problem, there has to be also three sections in your RRL. No unnecessary sections, please. So we said that there is to be a described component, and the described component must have dimensions embedded in it, preferably at least three. The evaluate component will follow the described component, that described dimensions. But aside from the described dimension, there has to be at least two identified areas there. No, not just one, but two. And then after this one, you have the you will see you will see already that the evaluate component will eventually sandali, baka ma-confuse kayo. Sandali. So this is only the described, evaluate, and prescribed, right? Where the described will have the dimensions, and you do not have to repeat the dimensions in problem number 2, or you don't have to repeat the dimensions in problem number 3, which is an error that I've seen so many did. No, you do not have to repeat the dimensions. It's given. That's in, if it's in problem number 1, it's also carried over in problem number 2 and in problem number 3. And then as I was showing you a while ago, the RRL is where things will change, because it's in the RRL where you will see the complete manifestation of the RR of the way you will answer your statement of the problem. And yes, this is how you will answer your statement of the problem. And therefore, even if it's not stated in problem, even if it's not stated there in your even if it's not stated there in your statement of the problem, in the RRL, you need to expose it completely. No, and I will repeat that. You have to expose that completely. That's the reason why some of you will actually have a more comprehensive conceptual framework. And this is also the issue that I'm saying, no? The conceptual framework, the CF, as you know, is nothing but the conceptual is the schematic diagram of your RRL. And if your RRL is actually that complicated, as I told you, which is the literary answer to your statement of the problem, just as I told you last time, then you'd understand why your conceptual framework must also be very, very detailed and very, very complicated, no? And this is the first thing that you need to ascertain or be assured of, based also on chapter 1, on the relationship between chapter 1 and chapter 2. May magbubura, sandali, maglalak lang ako ng mga let me just lock a few things so that you cannot touch my drawing. Okay, now this is chapter 1 and chapter 2, as you've seen, right? And as we are ascertained of, please take note, therefore, at this stage that instances where you can see narratives, reports, and things like that, that should actually make it to your background of the study and not your RRL. So, so the background of the study, as you would see, is the one that lays down the foreground, the situation, the context for the conduct of the study. No, so that if you have narratives, stories, reports, they should not make it to the RRL. The RRL should actually consist on theory and supporting literature. So for example, in the evaluate stage, when you ask what are the weaknesses, you have to explain the weaknesses in terms of the dimensions of problem number 1. Not the dimensions, not just general evaluations or general prescription. Sorry, mali ito. Let me just unlock, because this is not evaluate, but this is prescribe. Your prescription or your suggestion. So it is here in this context that your chapter 3 will make sense. Remember, your chapter 3 should define what type of research design you are going to implement. And more often than not, as we said, there are only 3 types of research design: quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method. And this will have their own repercussions, as you know by now, because this will also define whether your sampling is purposive or whether your sampling is so this will define whether your sampling is purposive, randomized, because it has to be randomized if it's quantitative research, sorry. And then if it's going to be purposive or predominantly purposive or non-random, that will be defined by ay, oh, sakit na likod ko, wag pinahirapan pa ako nitong app. So, and the other one is non-randomized, no? Remember, if you're going to do both mixed method, which many of you are really doing, no, you have to do both, no, non-random and random at the same time, no. Dalawa dapat, hindi pwedeng isa lang ang gagawin mo, dapat dalawa talaga silang ginagawa, ha? So that means to a certain extent you will do So to a certain extent, you will do the sampling properly. This is very important. You have to pay attention because this will define whether your paper is generalizable or not. And that's also the distinction between non-random and randomized studies or qualitative and quantitative research. But aside from this area, we also need to pay attention, as I said, on how you create your instrument, and in the conduct of your in the conduct of the making of your instrument, please take note that the instrument will have to point you back to the RRL, because you cannot conduct the instrument apart from the RRL. The instrument is a consequence of the RRL. For that matter, you will have to go back again to the RRL, and take note that the RRL should actually point that to you. The RRL should help you identify what are your concepts, what are your dimensions, what are your indicators. And in this case, the indicators, your concepts and dimensions are in the RRL. This is actually where the indicators will also come from. That's why you need to know as early as possible, as I said, where the statement of the problem, what are the theoretical support to the statement of the problem. Even if the questionnaire will be adapted specifically to the context of the Philippine Air Force, it will still have to come from the RRL. So that means you cannot put an item in your questionnaire or in your interview guide that was not based, or that is not based on the review of related literature. It cannot come from thin air, which basically means, therefore, that at the end of the day, regardless of whether you will do questionnaire or you will whether you will do interview guide, or whether you will do an interview guide, this will have to be all based on the RRL. The RRL is the basis of these two. Hindi ito nanggagaling sa wala. Lagi niyong tatandaan, the RRL and the questionnaire must actually come from the RRL. And take note that the questionnaire and the interview guide must always be checked to make sure that it answers the statement of the problem. That's the reason why I've always emphasized in class last time the value of identifying your concept, dimensions, indicators. Maybe you have ideas that you inserted in the questionnaire, but remember, if a question or an item in the questionnaire doesn't have a theoretical basis in the RRL, it shouldn't be there, because it will look like hunch, it will look like opinion, it will look like it's something that was simply inserted for purposes of insertion. And that's a no-no, no? That's a no-no. So, now, if you will take the path of the questionnaire, you also need to understand that you need to pre-test the questionnaire for validity and reliability. This is something you need to do. You have to provide the validity and the reliability of your questionnaire if you will conduct a questionnaire. But if you will do an interview guide, please take note that that you only need to expert validation is enough, no? Expert or content validation is enough. Dali. Nag-lock yung laptop ko. Expert or content validation is enough. So the expert and content validation, this is conducted by your panel most of the time. You only need to show to them the questionnaire, but you also need to show that this is the answer to question number 1, question number 2, and question number 3. Now, on this matter of questionnaires, please take note again, you cannot ask on the level of dimensions. You cannot ask on the level of concepts. On matters of questionnaires, please take note this has to be done on the level of indicators. So if you have questions in your questionnaire that look exactly like your statement of the problem, or that look exactly like evaluate A1 or A2, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. Or if it will look exactly like that's gonna be wrong, because as we have emphasized, it needs to operate at this level, no, at the level of indicators, not at the level of on the level, sorry, pangit yung kulay. Not on the level of concepts, not on the level of dimensions. Okay? Now, but aside from the questionnaire, it is also the task of the researcher to actually lay down how he will answer the statement of the problem. And therefore, he will, in the data analysis section, please do not forget that it is your task to explain how you will answer problem number 1, 2, and 3. And therefore, this cannot be done by simply saying, I will do thematic analysis, or I will do this like that. No. So you have to tell your readers, for problem number 1, this is how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna gather the mean, I'm gonna compute the mean, and then use a preset criteria to evaluate the mean. Or even for qualitative researches, you have to explain, no? How are you going to evaluate the status of X? So you're gonna gather the concepts, the themes that will come out, and then based on the themes that will come out, you are going to use a rubric that is supposed to be there in data analysis 1, a rubric for evaluating the status using qualitative means. Diba? Do not forget that. So the data analysis section will also play a very important role. By the way, I almost forgot that please do not forget that if you implement all of a sudden, if you implement a interview, if you implement an interview, please take note that the interview will have to be subjected to what if you do a qualitative research. Please take note that the interview will have to go through triangulation, which basically means there has to be 3 processes or 3 data sources each corroborating each other. Please take note, you cannot answer questionnaire for problem number 1, an interview for problem number 2, and then document for problem number 3. That will make your study, chop, no? Triangulation means in answering problem number 1, I have 3 data sources. In answering problem number 2, I have 3 data sources. Or in answering problem number 3, I have 3 data sources. That's what it means. Okay? So if I will implement a mixed method, the questionnaire will constitute one data set, which means therefore that I only need to add 2 more. You can do 4. You can do more than 4 even. But please take note that triangulation only necessitates 3, not more than 3. No, I would rather prefer to see you do the 3 very well than not do the 3 very well. Okay? So that's for chapters 1, 2, and 3. Now, for chapter 4, which is the concern of this consult, in answering chapter 4, we did say that we will follow the outline articulated in the RRL. Yes, the one that will define your chapter 4 is your RRL. And what's the difference between the RRL and chapter 4? The RRL is the generic. If you remember, that's what I said last time, no? This is the generic, very generic answer to the statement of the problem. This is on the other hand, this is the very specific or branded, way of answering your statement of the problem. That being the case, you'd now understand what the relationship is between the two. That's why it's very important that when you conduct or when you do your research, you should already know what to expect, because or else tayo gulatan in the end. Isipin ko na naintindihan mo yung statement of the problem mo the way I wanted it, pero yung pala iba yung pagkakaintindi mo sa statement of the problem mo. This is what we have to pay attention to. We have to look into how your statement of the problem is actually going to be answered. So if it follows the RRL, you need to understand now you never answer the statement of the problem according to data gathering methodology. And this is the error of so many researchers. Sometimes when they go to chapter 4, they talk about KII, and then under KII 1, problem number 2, problem number 3, or sometimes they say questionnaire, and then problem number 1, problem number 2, problem number 3, or then document analysis, problem number 1, problem number 2, problem number 3. No. We are not going to do that. The main, or this is wrong, no? So for those who this is actually very wrong. It's not just wrong, it's very wrong. So this is wrong. Do not do that. This tells you that all of a sudden the data gathering tools which came out only in this section, chapter 3 of the thesis, became the organizing principle. Do not turn it into an organizing principle, because it's not the organizing principle. Please take note. This is not the organizing principle, and therefore to organize the entire paper according to the statement of the according to the data gathering tool is wrong, no? And I will repeat that. It is wrong, no? So the one that will organize chapter 4 is the statement of the problem. The success of the study depends on whether the study is able to answer the statement of the problem or not. Please take note of that. That is the determining variable there. That's why you need to follow the script, the describe, evaluate, and prescribe outline, no? So if this is the outline you implemented in your statement of the problem, this is the same outline that should be followed in the sandali, hindi straight ayaw niya na mag-straight. Ayaw. Never mind. So this is the same outline that you have to follow exactly. No, please do not forget that. This is the outline you have to follow exactly. No, do not think twice. This is how you should answer it. Now, how do you lay down this one? No, how do you lay down the describe, evaluate, and prescribe? Of course, following the outline of the RRL, as we said. The RRL defines that dimension, no? Do not forget that. But do not forget also that for every aspect of these, no? For every aspect of the describe, prescribe, and evaluate section, you have to implement a few things. First, you have to present your data first, no? Present your data first, and then you have to, di ba, present and then analysis, di ba? This many other sections called this presentation and analysis of data. And when you present your data, how you present your data will vary whether you're quantitative, whether you're implementing a quantitative review or a qualitative review. Remember, if you're in the presentation of quantitative data, this follows a deductive model, and the deductive model basically tells you general to specific. That's the reason why in the presentation of data for qualitative researches, you have to lay down the table first before you actually dissect the table, di ba? You present the general mean first before you dissect the indicators in the describe phase. Or in the evaluate phase, you present first the T-score, you present first the F-score, and then you dissect the indicators by showing if there's a significant difference between the T-score, if there's a significant T or a significant F, you have to do it. If it's T, you have to explain that the mean of A is bigger or higher than the mean of B. Or if it's an ANOVA, you need to explain why you have to do a Ponfenori or a post-hoc analysis to demonstrate the difference between the two. No, that's how it's going to look like. No, or if it's a correlation, you have to present each of the dimensions first, and then after you present each of the dimensions, you need to understand that you have to show how A is related to B in terms of correlation. That's for the present. So present deductive first, no? And again, deductively means general to specific. Now, if many of you are doing qualitative and that's inductive, inductive means particular to general. So you have to present first the the words, the lines, the statements from the KII, the lines or statements from the FGD, or the lines or statements from the document individually following the triangulation process to show what type of data you got from the interview, what type of data you got from the FGD, what type of data you got from the document, and then you triangulate them. And then after you triangulate them, that's how you present the data. You thematize, di ba? That's why so take note about that. In this case, you have to present the general first, and then before you dissect. That's how it's done. No, that's how you present the data here. Here you present first the specific statements from triangulation. So specific statements from each of the 3 data sets. No, remember, dapat to A, B, C, mapakita mo kung ano yung mga data na nakuha mo doon. And then after that, you triangulate. That's how it will look like, no? And then, but all that you did after that is to have presented the data. You also need to analyze the data, no? And analysis of the data normally takes 2 parts. One is to corroborate it, and corroboration basically means you have to go back again to the RRL to see or to show whether your RRL, whether your findings agree or disagree with the RRL. That's what corroboration means here. Corroboration means balik ka sa RRL, tignan mo ulit, nag-a-agree ba yung sinasabi mo sa RRL o hindi. Now, disagreement, agreement doesn't mean anything. So you have nothing to worry. If all of a sudden your findings do not agree with literature, to a certain extent you might be wrong. But also, that doesn't give you the liberty to doctor your findings. You just say this findings is contrary to the research of Captain like that, or this is contrary to the findings, ganon. Dapat alam mo kung yung claim mo ay nag-a-agree pa ba o nagdi-disagree na doon sa sinasabi ng mga nauna sa'yo. That's what corroboration means. But analysis doesn't end there in corroboration. It also have to end up with implication, which is where you draw your findings. Okay? Let me lock this first. I raised hands, Captain De La Cruz and Captain Bakay. Let me answer this question. If, example, the study is a quali-quanti and leans towards qualitative as the bulk of data gathering, paano pang presentation of quanti data? Will it just be part of quali analysis? In some of our research, we were instructed to use survey as part of our triangulation process. Yes. So if to answer the question that was raised in the chat box, if you were asked to do a survey, that will already survey as part of the triangulation process, automatically you go to mixed method. No, it's a mixed method. Now, if it's a mixed method, so it's gonna be here, di ba? If it's a mixed method, you have to pay at wait a minute. If it's a mixed method, you have to use both the principles of quanti and the principles of quali, di ba? So, ibig sabihin, yung quanti part mo, dapat merong validity and reliability pre-testing. Tapos, at the same time, gagamit ka rin ng triangulation. Yan ang ibig sabihin yan pag nagpalagay ng survey sa 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 data gathering nyo. Ibig sabihin, mixed method ka. So, dapat gagawin mo yung validity and reliability sa questionnaire, gagawin mo rin yung expert and content validation sa interview guide. Pero ang ibig sabihin, but that also means that it has to be three data sources still. Triangulation pa rin. Now, if it's mixed method, you need to decide what type of mixed method will the study be, no? And what do I mean by that? If it's mixed method, you have to sandali, naninira ng board work. Shh. Na. Dali I'm OC this way. So, pag mixed method, didesisyonan mo ano yung primary data mo. Quanti-quali ba or quali-quanti? Yan ang pinakamahalagang determining factor dito. Kasi kung ang desisyon mo, quanti ang pinaka-base data mo, quali supporting data mo lang. Ibig sabihin, deductive yung presentation mo, you will present your data deductively. And then after so general first to specific, tapos pagpunta mo sa specific, doon mo lang, pag dinisect yung indicators, doon mo lang i-include yung qualitative dimension. Doon mo lang ipapasok yung mga statements ng mga interview mo, anong documents na nagko-corroborate doon sa findings mo. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. So, tapos pag quanti naman, that means you begin first with the statements, because it's the base data that you have. And then based on that base data, you will arrive at the general themes. Tapos pag arrive mo sa general themes mo, ibabagsak mo naman yung table from your survey. Tapos kwan naman yon from so inductive hanggang specific to general. Tapos pagdating mo sa general, ibabagsak mo yung survey mo, general to specific ka ulit. So babalik ka sa specific. So mapapansin mo, pag quanti-quali, ang design dyan, general to specific, specific to general. Pag quali-quanti, specific to general, general to specific. Magbabago yung presentation ng data depende sa desisyon nyo kung quanti ba o quali yung study. Ganon kahalaga itong area na to. Kaya dapat desisyonan nyo kung ano ba talaga yung study na i-conduct nyo. Kasi this will define what type of study or how you will present the data when you go to chapter 4. Did I answer your question, Captain De La Cruz or Captain Bakay?
Yes, sir.
analyze the data. So for the described phase, technically described phase AB. So technically, so kung bibilangin natin, no, kasi mahirap because officers wanted to count how many paragraphs often. So for example, in a statement of the problem that looks like these in the RRL, this will have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 major sections. No? I mean, 3 major sections, but when laid down, 15 dapat yung gagawa mo ng presentation and analysis, 15. Now, if you do deductive, more or less, that will be 2 paragraphs per item. So, 30 paragraphs na yon. Tapos, i-corroborate mo pa at saka implication. So, that's technically 60 paragraphs na. Ganon yung lalabas. Pag triangulation, automatic, 1, 2, 3, 4 sa umpisa pa lang, 5, 6. So, 6 times 15, ganon yung dami ng paragraphs na lalabas dapat. Okay? Now, take note that you have to be careful also that because we explained last time the difference between to a certain extent what I call the a priori, pwede palang lumiit eh. Tipid ako ng tipid ng space. The a priori, the one that came from the research, from the literature, and also on the other hand, the a posteriori. No, the a posteriori, you have to understand, this is the one that will come from your research findings, and they can be the same. But this is when you discover something very endemic to the Air Force. Naalala nyo yun? Sinasabi ko sa inyo, pwede kayong may ma-discover na hindi talaga alam, hindi alam ng literature, pero unique lang sa Air Force natin. At dahil doon, pwedeng magkaroon ng a posteriori. Yung a posteriori field, you have to understand, this is very important because this is your contribution to knowledge per se. And as your contribution to knowledge, ayaw umakyat, walang ya. Sandali lang, i-lock ko nga ito. Ayaw na. Tandaan nyo, pag may a posteriori kayo na-discover na unique, kailangan yung hanapan nyo ng theoretical background sa RRL. Kaya magbabago pa rin yung RRL following the discoveries that will come out, because you cannot simply report a weakness or a challenge without really identifying that literature identified it as a challenge, or literature identified it as a weakness or as an intervention. Ibig sabihin, makikita nyo dyan, hindi kayo pwedeng mag-suggest lang dahil trip nyo lang mag-suggest. Hindi siya ganun nangyayari. Kailangan na lahat ng madidiscover nyo, theory-laden pa rin. Based pa rin siya on literature. Yan na magbibigay sa inyo ng support sa ginagawa nyo. So take note about this one. This is how you will present your chapter 4. And I don't know if I mentioned it in class, but remember, chapter 4 is the heart of the study, which means this should be understood as your thickest chapter, ha? Ito yung pinakamakapal na chapter ever, chapter 4. Kasi diyan nyo ipine-present yung na-discover nyo sa diyan nyo ipe-present lahat ng na-discover nyo. Little by little, diyan dapat lalabas lahat, no? So, ibig sabihin, nandyan dapat yung discovery nyo sa lahat ng statement of the problem sa Air Force. Now, based on my experience and the previous commandant's papers, mas makapal yung RRL kaysa yung chapter 4, parang law of diminishing returns. In a way that is wrong. Chapter 4 is where you apply everything that you theoretically organized in the RRL. And therefore, Chapter 4 should be where all your energies are. No? Ito talaga yung pinakapuso ng study. Kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo, lagi, ang magdi-define ng RRL niyan, ang magdi-define ng organizational principle niyan, statement of the problem, ha? Hindi data gathering tool, hindi the statement of the problem. So dapat dyan sinasagot na status of the air strike capability of the Philippine Air Force, ganun dapat. Or challenges in the air strike capability of the Philippine Air Force, or sa interventions to the challenges of the airstrike capability of the Philippine Air Force. Ganun ka straight to the point. Kasi dyan mo talagang ipapakita, ito yung mga na-discover, ito yung mga na-gather ko na data tungkol sa Philippine Air Force, at ito yung kaya ka mag-i-imply eh. Kasi doon sa implication, sasagutin mo na yon isa-isa. Okay? And then lastly, for summary, conclusion, and recommendation, remember that the summary, conclusion, and recommendation, this is chapter 5, but you still have a chapter 6, remember, because you always have a prescribed dimension. Now, in this case, therefore, your summary, conclusion, and recommendation should only follow the statement of the problem. So 1, 2, 3, ganun lang yan. 1, 2, 3. Of course, pwedeng 1A, 2A, 2B, pwede nyo ring iganon. Pero in reality, 1, 2, 3, answering problem statements number 1, 2, 3 is the minimum requirement. Pero dapat masagot mo. So kung may dimensions ka sa bawat isa, ilalagay mo talaga yung dimensions mo dyan. Sa 1, 2, 3. So you never write a generic summary, you never write a generic conclusion, you never write a generic recommendation. Each will still follow the organization laid down by the statement of the problem. No? And I will repeat that. We will still follow in this point the organization laid down by the statement of the problem. That's why, as I told you dati, di ba? The statement of the problem is so important that a change in the statement of the problem will necessarily imply a change in the structure of the paper. Magbabago at magbabago. Okay? Now, you'd say, sir, yung chapter 6 namin, saan galing yung chapter 6 namin? Your chapter 6 will come not from this recommendation, it will come from these. Problem number 3, dito galing yung chapter 6 nyo. This is where your chapter 6 will come from, or your action plan will come from. This is where you will suggest steps to actualize one or all of the suggestions that you prescribe as a response to identified challenges, weaknesses, or to the evaluate part above. No, dito manggagaling 'yon. Now, of course, pwede rin naman manggaling dito sa part na to, sa recommendations part. Pero technically hindi diyan galing, no? The action plan are projects that are actualized on the basis of the findings of the study, not any other thing. No, it's organized on the basis of the findings of the study, not any other thing. Okay? So that's technically your entire research module with me. But today we're emphasizing more on chapter 4 already, presuming that your 1, 2, 3 is very smooth and is something that you have understood thoroughly. Okay? Questions? Violent reactions. I'll close this so I can see everyone. So if you want to take a photo, you can take a photo now, or screenshot if that's needed. I think you can download a section or a section of it. You can download it in the export part. Okay? Use the whiteboard now. So gawin nyo na kung pipicturean nyo o kung hindi. Pre-recorded naman ito. Closing the page now. Okay. So far, I'm still with you or you're still with me? Yes. Sige, let's go for, so we'll now move to the consultation where I will address your concerns one-on-one, and then the rest of the seminars, I'll see you tomorrow. The first two seminars, I'll see you in after 10 minutes, if that's okay with everyone. So 10 minutes for the first seminar. Thank you very much, everyone. And then I'll see everyone again tomorrow before everything closes so that I can give my general observations about the papers that were submitted or that were presented to me. Okay? So if there are none, thank you very much. I'll see each one in a bit. And this is your quickie moment with me. 10 minutes, 10 minutes, I think. So thank you and see you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. And classmates,
Thank you, sir.
mag-sign out na lang yung iba. Alpha will remain or be back after 10 minutes for the consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.